It was Halloween night, and in a quiet suburban neighborhood, Anna was handing out candy while waiting for her friends to pick her up for a party. She'd almost run out of treats by the time she noticed a lone trick-or-treater standing at the end of her driveway, away from the streetlight. He was smaller, wearing a ghost costume with a frayed white sheet and a mask that looked oddly old-fashioned. He wasn't moving, just watching her. Anna waved, and he slowly shuffled toward her, his mask obscuring his face completely. She smiled, dropped some candy in his bag, and waited for him to say, "Thank you." But he just stared silently. Feeling uneasy, she glanced back at her house, thinking of going inside. When she turned back, he was gone. It was only a few seconds, and he'd disappeared without a sound. The hairs on her neck stood up as she looked down the street, but he was nowhere in sight. Her friends arrived, and she brushed it off as a strange trick-or-treater and forgot about it until she got home later that night. As she climbed the steps to her door, she saw something on her front porch, a single piece of candy from her bowl resting on the doormat. She felt her heart race as she reached for it, and just then, she heard a soft knock behind her. She spun around, and there he was, the ghostly figure, standing by her driveway again. His mask looked faded and cracked, like it was from another time. Anna ran inside and slammed the door, calling her friends to tell them what happened. They searched the area but found no trace of him. From that Halloween on, every year she found a piece of candy on her porch, no matter where she lived. The ghost trick-or-treater, it seemed, was always waiting for her return. Brad and his friends went to a Halloween corn maze on the outskirts of town, hoping for a scare and some laughs. The place was packed, and the eerie atmosphere was perfect for Halloween. Fog machines filled the air, and creepy decorations lined the maze paths. As they made their way deeper into the maze, the crowd thinned out, and the laughter of the other guests faded, replaced by an unsettling silence. Brad and his friends joked to mask their nerves until they realized they hadn't seen anyone else for a while. They tried to retrace their steps, but every turn led them farther into the maze. They stopped when they saw a figure standing at the end of one path, a scarecrow-like figure, only it seemed more alive. Its head was slumped down, but it looked as if it were breathing ever so slightly. Brad whispered to his friends to stay quiet as they inched backward, but the figure raised its head. Its face was half-masked, eyes hollow and unblinking. Then, in a raspy voice, it muttered, "Are you lost?" before breaking into a wide, unsettling smile. They turned and ran, only to find that every path now led back to that figure, as if it were controlling the maze itself. One by one, Brad's friends disappeared, until he was the last one left. He ran desperately, calling for help. But the maze seemed endless. Finally, he found himself back at the maze entrance, his friends waiting for him, laughing at his horror-stricken face. They didn't understand why he looked so shaken until he pointed to the maze entrance, where he could still see the eerie figure standing there, watching him with a grin. It was only after they left that he learned the legend. The Halloween corn maze was rumored to be haunted by the spirit of an old scarecrow keeper who never let lost souls leave the maze. Brad knew that, somehow, he'd barely escaped, but felt like he'd left a part of himself behind that night.